Coldplay or Taylor Swift? Definitely Taylor Swift.
Me, I'm definitely a Jackie Chung fan. How will this bumper crop of concert impact Singapore's economic growth?
Well, I think there is a lot of hopes that, thousands of overseas visitors will come to Singapore because of the upcoming concerts. They will book air tickets, they will book hotels, they will go out and eat in the restaurants, and you'll do some shopping, and you'll visit a lot of the other attractions as well. So net, I think the hospitality and entertainment sector is going to be looking forward to more business. And hopefully that will actually give Singapore's growth a boost.
So the impact will start from now, right? Since we're already busy trying to get tickets.
I think definitely. A lot of people I know are already preparing to try and get their hands on the very highly sought after tickets, including myself. On the flip side, will this contribute to inflation in Singapore?
I think inflation may just go up a little bit, not significant, but during that period, perhaps F&B outlets will be perhaps more expensive.
I think it will really boil down to the specific industry. If they are really ramping up operations and getting a bit more manpower on board for that specific period of time, then hopefully it won't contribute that much to a supply squeeze. But if the supply is very, very inelastic, for instance, if there are no more new hotels coming on stream, then it may actually contribute to higher hotel tariffs.
Do you play any musical instrument, not financial instrument? If no, what instruments would you like to pick up?
Well, I used to tinker a little bit on the piano when I was very young. Since then, I think it's very much financial instruments. What about you?
Quite similar to, I love to play the piano, but I think I'm thinking of picking up saxophone for a change.
If Equities had a greatest hit album, what would it sound like in the second half?
I think the theme for Equity is still very much going to be focused on some of the mega themes, and one of the mega themes obviously is AI. So this time we're talking about generative AI, and so there's been a lot of interest. Obviously, this is also sparked by ChatGPT, and so now you can look at what application, and I think we're talking about application all the way from even consumer products to even high-level sort of high-tech industry as well.
What song would you sing if you had to perform at a concert? I don't think we'll be performing at any concerts soon, but going along the Taylor Swift hype, probably Anti-Hero.
Speaking of performance, which sector or industry have been surprises this year and misses?
Okay, I think the big miss for this year from the industrial production point of view really was electronics. So we've had a very prolonged slump in electronics demand because global demand is slowing down. But on top of that, we also had basically US-China tensions, especially over the semiconductor sector. But in terms of the greatest hits, I would say, actually transport engineering has been doing very well. So first, it really started with, the aerospace sector because a lot of the planes that were used to be parked on the tarmac during the pandemic, but now seeing a big influx of revenge travel, are basically being brought out, and a lot of maintenance and repair work that's ongoing, so that has lifted the sector. But on top of that, we're also starting to see that marine and offshore industry also seeing some activity coming back.
I think one of the key hits for this year will be the banking sector. The banks have done very well in the first half of this year, and then, of course, going to the second half, the outlook still remains fairly positive. Another sector that is actually doing very well now is obviously the tourism industry as well. So a lot of the tourism-related companies in the hospitality space have actually performed in the first half, and in the second half, we'll still see a marginal increase in terms of their performance as well. So those are some of the gainers for this year.
What song best describes your outlook for the rest of the year? Treacherous.
Shake it off, shake it off. What sectors have been a Coldplay this year? For me, I think one of the clear sectors that have not done very well is like what she said earlier, is the technology sector. Especially in Singapore, when we're not talking about the global tech industry, more specifically on the local tech front as well. Even the energy stocks have not done as well, largely because of the fact that oil prices have come up. So those are some of the colder plays this year.
Who else would you like to see perform in a concert here?
Adele! I would love to have her here.
China's growth momentum has been slower than expected. Do you anticipate a comeback in the next 6 months? Well, we've had basically very initial euphoria over China's reopening announcement. But since then, since about April or so, we've started to see the economic indicators start to decelerate again. So, hopes about whether there's going to be a big engine of growth, especially to regional economies, has kind of fizzled out. So while we have seen policymakers in China actually adopt easier policy, especially in terms of the interest rate cuts, but nevertheless, I think it's going to be a fairly bumpy and uneven type of trajectory in the next 6 months because we have weak domestic confidence. The property sector still remains fairly soft. We're not seeing the home buyers come back in a big way, and that affects the funding for the local governments. And last but not least, because youth unemployment is relatively high, so overall the confidence is not there, and I think that will rein in the need to spend.
If the two of you were in a band, what would it be called?
Two analysts and one head. So for the second half of 2023, markets are likely to stay uncertain and a bit choppy. But stay calm and stay invested.
Yes, I agree. Markets are going to be very volatile for the second half of the year, but do stay invested, especially in the mega teams. Well, let's look forward to more concert.
Yeah.